Okay, thank you all for coming. We will call the meeting to order and we'll have roll call.
President Kenya,
Present.
Vice President Catone, Secretary Coons, Treasurer Figueroa,
Present.
Trustee Down, Trustee Gardner,
Present.
Trustee Larkin, Trustee Ortiz,
Here.
Trustee Ross, Trustee Ross, Trustee Ballard, Trustee Walker.
Here.
Thank you, President Kenya.
Thank you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Yeah.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll move on to confirmation of agenda. Any corrections, deletions?
Not from staff.
Nothing from staff. Okay. Motion in a second.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Move on to public comments. Making any public comments other than the written ones we have received?
The only the written Mr. Brad do not have any.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to item number 5. It's a presentation by Jennifer.
Well, good evening, board, and thank you for this opportunity to present. The plan was that I was going to present this a little earlier in the year. Unfortunately, I wasn't with you at the March meeting, and so this is perhaps a little bit later than you might expect to have a review of what had happened the previous year, but it is a good time because it may answer some questions that you have about response plans and other work that is on your agenda tonight. So this slide is going to show up twice. These are your talking points as you're talking to your city councils, to your neighbors, to your friends at dinner party. These are the major things that are going on when it comes to viruses and things that you might want to hold on to. We'll go over some of these in detail so that you can have a little bit more background as you're talking to your friends and neighbors about what's going on in the district. But the goal is to set what happened for us at the district last year in context of what was going on more globally, and then predict what we think is going to happen in 2025 for the district this year. So this particular graph, as we look, is all of the positive mosquito samples that we've detected at the district by year since West Nile virus was first detected in the district in 2003. And so you can see that the blue line is West Nile virus. St. Louis is a little bit more brownish red, and Western equine encephalomyelitis virus was in green. And you should see a few things as you look at this. That brown line that's going across, that's where 100 positive samples is. And since I've been at the district, that is what the team has talked about as an active virus year. That typically means that the team has had to make a number of applications of adult mosquito control products to knock down the population, that the outreach team has put out a number of press releases and had media interviews and done quite a bit of reaching out to people. And then, of course, the lab team has been setting traps and retrapping the area and testing for those. So you can see that we've had a number of years where we've exceeded that threshold of having an active virus year. What is just at the edge of that graph is well, maybe over on this side, it is the 2024 numbers. And what you'll see is that it is the second highest bar that we have on there, that we had 203 positive West Nile virus samples last year. So some of those takeaways for you, again, is that we have now had 4 active West Nile virus years in a row. Typically, we've only had 2 in previous years. And perhaps part of the reason that we had 4 is because of 2023 having Hurricane Hillary. So after that hurricane came through is when we had most of our West Nile virus activity. And then that likely transmitted into us having another active year in 2024. If we look at that graph a little more closely, we also might see that St. Louis encephalitis virus was having about a 4-year cycle. We'd have a peak, and then the next 3 years would be a little bit lower, building up again to another peak. That was broken last year in that we didn't have St. Louis encephalitis virus detected at all. So that'll be interesting to see how that happens. And then Western equine encephalomyelitis. This is the sister virus you sometimes hear about, triple E or Eastern equine encephalomyelitis virus that they have in the Eastern US. This is the version that we have out West, but we have not detected it since 2005. There was an outbreak that was going on in Argentina in 2022. We thought we might be detecting it again that year, but we still have not detected it yet in Coachella Valley. This is what the virus looked like for us overall last year, a very typical year, just high. A lot of that activity in the Eastern Coachella Valley around the Salton Sea where we might expect it. A lot of activity also in La Quinta. Not a surprising year, definitely not the on fire year that we had of 2019 when we had 500 positive mosquito samples. But a very busy year that the team had done quite a bit of work. Unfortunately, did not have anybody that was sick from West Nile virus, which of course was thanks to all the work that the team did for that. The other big news story for us was that there was dengue transmission in Southern California again in 2024. So this was first happened in 2023 in LA County in the San Gabriel Valley Mosquito Vector Control District, where they had 2 locally acquired cases. That being that the people that got the virus had not gone on vacation somewhere lovely. They had only stayed at home and ended up with this disease that is not normally found in California. In 2024, we had 18 such cases, 14 of those in LA County, 11 of those being from that same district, 3 of the cases in San Diego County, and 1 case in San Bernardino County. And that is because there was a huge amount of dengue transmission that happened in the Americas last year. You can see this blue line is all of the cases that were happening in 2024. This is in the Western Hemisphere. That yellow line is the average for 5 years. You can see how far above average it was last year. A tremendous number of people that were getting sick, over 11 million cases of dengue in the Americas. Fortunately, you can see those red bars for 2025. We're finally back to a much more normal year. It's really fantastic to see. Should mean fewer travel cases coming into the valley, into the state, should mean fewer local transmission cases as well. And this is evidenced also by these graphs from the Pan American Health Organization. That map over on the left side is showing you an increase or decrease in cases from the previous month. You can see blue and green are actually good signs. We're either seeing decreasing cases happening or no change in the cases, which is fantastic. Just a little bit of area that's still having an increase in cases. And I did pull up this Caribbean graph that's similar to the one that you saw on the previous slide, because that is where a lot of cases were also happening. Last year was Puerto Rico. We had a huge number of cases were happening in Puerto Rico. Even when we visited, we were hearing that they were still having cases in Puerto Rico, but they have finally, as they got into March, started to see that decrease in cases. And so we're looking forward to seeing fewer dengue cases this year in the Western Hemisphere, which is fantastic. I will briefly highlight hantavirus. This is not something that we have typically worried about here in the Coachella Valley, but many of us like to visit other parts of the state. A number of you may have heard about this either because you heard about the death of Gene Hackman, and unfortunately his wife also died around the same time, and she died from hantavirus. We also had 3 cases of 3 deaths of hantavirus in March in Mono County, California. And so that means that in this case, the presence of the deer mouse and the rodents is the problem rather than an insect. If you're in an area and you do see that there's rodent droppings, please do not use a vacuum. Please do not use a broom. What's happening is the dust that you're stirring up from doing that, that is where those virus particles are living. And so by using a vacuum, you're bringing that all up into the air and breathing it in. Same with using a broom. Please wet it down with a disinfectant spray or a bleach solution and clean it up that way. Wearing your gloves. I'd recommend using your N95 masks that I know you still have from COVID, but you do want to wet it down and clean it up that way. The CDPH has great information for you on that as well. So then trying to look ahead to what we might predict for going on for this year. This is what virus activity has looked like across the state of California. And we have not always followed California's pattern. You can see that for 2023, that was their very active year for West Nile virus. And I told you 2024 was our very active year for West Nile virus. So we are sometimes not on their same pattern for this. But I would expect for them, based on their 4-year cycle, they're going to see more mosquito samples that are positive for West Nile virus in 2025 than they did in 2024. But that they shouldn't see as many as they saw in 2023. So kind of this increasing trend that we usually see from their going up a 4-year cycle like that. We have been, thanks to the investment of the board in a research fund, we have been working with a researcher from Mount Sinai School of Medicine, Dr. Nick DeFleece, and he has given us a number of factors to look at when we're just looking at the weather and the climate conditions that could lead to an increased West Nile virus year. There are 4 factors, and right now we're taking the box yes on 3 of those factors. So it could be a more active West Nile virus year for us. We've had a slightly cooler December. We had a wetter than normal February, about 3 times the rainfall that we might get in an average year. And we've had a warm April. The 4th factor is what happens in July, whether that's a cool July, which we would all love, but mosquitoes would also love it. If we get that 4th factor, we would expect a very active West Nile virus year. But his model does not account for bird immunity. And since we had such a massive amount of virus activity, we'll have to see if the bird immunity rules or the climate variables rule. So this will be an interesting test of his model for us. So again, I will highlight that these are your takeaways. These are the things that I hope that you're talking about with your friends and your neighbors and your city councils, that we had a very active year, that will probably see St. Louis encephalitis virus return to the valley this year, and that local dengue transmission is occurring in California. And we hope it doesn't happen again this year, but the districts across the state are preparing for that. And then I do just want to close with, we did have a positive detection of West Nile virus along the Salton Sea in an area that is very traditional for us to have virus activity. It's in the community of North Shore. Greg and Robert and I have been leading our teams along with the rest of our colleagues doing a lot of work in the area. And we'll look forward to updating the board about all of the work that we've done next board meeting. But all of that work really is detailed out in the response plans that are before you for tonight's approval. This is a usual time in which the board updates our response plans, and it details all of the work that we do for virus detections and how we keep residents safe. So as you get to those, I'm sure you'll ask me questions about those, but happy to talk to you about any of my other scary predictions for you that you might have. So thank you.
Thank you. Questions, Richard? Nancy?
Jennifer, I'm all about talking to my friends and family, but not dinner.
What?
I just mean it doesn't mean.
You should probably not stop by the lab and hear our conversations over lunch then. I would not recommend it. Sometimes.
Hey, Jennifer, are there any elevation changes for mosquitoes?
Absolutely. So at different elevations, you can have more or fewer mosquitoes. A great example of this, if you think about Hawaii, where they were having bird malaria, and there's a really great sterile mosquito project where they're trying to save birds through sterilizing those mosquitoes. The birds above 8,000 feet are actually protected because the mosquitoes happen to not be living up there. So we definitely we see that mosquitoes like a particular elevation, and that's where their hosts are, and that's where they like to live.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, we'll move on to the consent calendar. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar. There aren't any changes. So motion, is there a second?
I second.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. We'll move on to item number D, which is the approval. Was that under the consent calendar as well? D? That was, right? Okay, good. Okay, we'll move on to business. Old business, item number 1, discussion and or approval of resolution 2025-9, electing to become a subject to the California Uniform Public Construction Cost Accounting Act.
So the next 2 items, these replace resolution 2024-16, which we adopted in December. The State Controller's Office informed us that we adopted a wrong resolution. So Resolution 2025-09 is electing to be subject to the California Uniform Public Construction Accounting Act. This allows us to use informal bids up to $200,000. After that, we go to formal bid. Currently, without this amendment, we have to go to bid at 25,000. And this item was reviewed by the Finance Committee in December, and this resolution, it rescinds 2024-16, and it's for electing to be subject to the Act.
Okay.
Any
Thank you.
questions?
Megan, do we need to take these resolutions individually? Or can we take them in one motion? Both of
Yeah.
them in one motion. Okay. Yeah, I'll entertain a motion for resolution 2025-09. Is there a second? Second. Okay, there's a motion and second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. I'll entertain a motion for resolution 2025-10. I'll move it. There's a motion. There's a second.
I will second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to new business. Item number 1 is discussion and or approval of resolution 2025-13, adopting the strategic business plan for fiscal year 26 through 29.
All right, good evening, trustees and staff. I am going to be presenting the culmination of the work that the board staff have been working on since at least last 3 or 4 months regarding our new strategic plan. Andy Pendoli is on Zoom, so he'll be here for questions, but I'm going to present the overview seeking adoption of this business plan or strategic business plan. So the presentation will include a purpose and process, strategic framework for the plan, our goals and objectives, and then also how we're going to monitor and do oversight over the next 3 years. So the purpose of strategic planning in general is to ensure that our board has consensus on what goals and objectives staff should be working on in the course of the plan. So in our case, it's a 3-year plan. Helps the management team develop further some of the elements that we're working on. So this plan tonight, and that's in your board packet, has goals and objectives, but I'm working with a management team and staff developing some of the strategies that how we're going to reach those objectives. And those are still in draft form. We're working that with a goal of having those finalized by June, or at least in their working form. As the strategic plan goes on, sometimes we change those strategies in reaching those objectives. Again, it helps with supporting our continued team culture and development, professional growth. A big portion of our plan is focused at culture, and you'll see that in the document, and you've seen it if you in your review. And then also we'll be focusing on how we track this. So we're going to be taking on some new software that's going to increase accessibility, not only for the board, for staff to manage that plan, but also for the public to engage in it as well and see how we're doing. So just as a review in the planning process, phase 1 was the management team sessions. So Andy met with us to kind of get the process going. He worked with the board of trustees. He interviewed you individually. We had sessions with the staff. So we had essentially by department or program, all staff got involved with Andy and giving their feedback on where they think the district should be focusing on for the next 3 years. Also looking at our values and what's important to them. And we took that feedback from not only the board, but also from staff as we met with the management team to kind of chisel away at the objectives for this plan. And then we had this board workshop where the feedback was given from the board. And again, that was incorporated into that work with the management team. Phase 2 of it continued work with the management team in refining and taking the information that we received from the board and some of the insights that we gained from staff. And we had a board workshop number 2 that was virtual. We had several trustees attend. They gave it additional feedback on where we were at on the plan. and also looked at our draft plan. And that was actually sent to all board members. Which brings us to tonight, which is review questions, any suggested modifications, but then adoption of that, so we can work with that plan in the next 3 years to focus on where the district is going and some of our large key objectives. And then also, as we move forward, reporting tools, which I'm excited about, and I think will make it even a better process in not only coordinating with staff, but also making sure that we're on target. So the framework, we worked on our vision. Where are we going? Our mission statement. What are we here to do as a public health agency? We examined our values as a board and staff. In particular with this, and we have a lot of values, but I think in the values that we'll see tonight really are pertinent to the next 3 years, and it really kind of drives that plan. We have goal statements. These statements are really similar to what we've had in, I would say, our previous 2 plans. Those have been kind of stood the test of time, but some of the focus and the objectives of that plan have changed because things are changing, and we're focusing on different things in our district. So what do we want to achieve? And then the strategy, and that's what we're working at now as a management team, is we have these objectives, we have these goals, assuming they're approved by the board. How are we going to, as a team, work to make sure we achieve those objectives and support those goals that ultimately support our mission and get us closer to that vision? So after a lot of work, feedback from the board and from staff, and working with Andy, we have come up with this draft vision statement, which was, we envision our communities free of mosquito and vector-borne disease. That's similar to what we've had in the past, but essentially that's where we're working towards. We can't guarantee we're going to get rid of all the mosquitoes, no matter how cool the technology gets, but we can drive the numbers of our vectors in the valley to, we think we can attain that through our programs where people don't get sick from mosquitoes or other vectors that may encroach or become an issue in the future. The mission statement, again, incorporated the feedback from all involved, and it comes to, we protect public health with our communities. So really a shift while we provide services in order to really achieve what we need to do here in the Valley. We see a big push through our programs and is to really engage our constituency and get them on board, because while we have a very mighty team of 70 plus staff members, we have a large district, and we need the public to buy into what we're doing and be part of it, because essentially everything we're doing, as I'm sure you're aware, most of it's what we've created, and so it will be successful as we work with our team, but also engaging the community. So we protect our public health with our communities through proven scientific, educational, and sustainable vector control programs. And the values that shook out through this process with the board and staff: integrity and trust. We uphold the highest levels of responsibility, transparency, and accountability, and we perform those to high standards. Collaboration. We work as a team and with individuals, communities, and institutions to further our mission. Dedication and service. We commit to delivering quality service and results for all of our community members. Respect. We appreciate and honor our team members and our partner institutions, and professionalism. And then financial sustainability provides stability through the responsible use of public resources. And rounding it out is innovation. We develop environmentally sound best practices in programs and services through applied research. So the mission, the vision, those values support the goals and objectives that we have for the coming 3 years. And we still have some sort of frame shift on this, Ed. But anyways, programs, the effective environmentally sound programs. One, we have two objectives in this goals. One is to design, implement new dynamic estimating model for measuring and optimizing desired program service levels and efficacy. It's a lot, but what it boils down to is, as the Valley grows, and it seems like power is a limiting factor there, but we have the space to grow as a community, and with that growth will come expectations for increase in services. What the team is going to be looking at what we are doing today. Where do we see that potential growth? And in order to provide the services at the level that we want, can we develop essentially an algorithm or a measure how we can systematically essentially add heads to the organization. How many people do we need to deliver this service? So that'll be part of that project and some of the strategies aimed at reaching that objective. Second big piece of that too is to implement the sterile male mosquito program, which Jennifer gave an overview at our budget workshop, and definitely will share that with us. I know not everyone could make it to kind of see where we're going over the next several years with that. Thanks, Ed. Shifted somehow. Second goal is human resources and district culture. Strong culture drives the board of trustees and staff to unite as a team and continually grow in both skill and purpose. 4 objectives within this is maintain a positive district culture. It's been a big focus for the district, creating a working environment to promote effective communication, collaboration, engagement, creativity, and employee satisfaction. And so we're looking at strategies. How do we support that in the next 3 years? 2.2, provide educational opportunities for employees looking to grow into promotions by providing training and development. We've had a long tradition of supporting continuing education with staff. We have a great tuition reimbursement program. How can we make that more accessible to staff, and how can we support them in other ways to grow? Because we do create, while we do garner new folks from outside the district, we've had a history of growing people internally, which is great as an organization. 2.3 is aimed at the folks behind the dais, establishing conditions to ensure the board of trustees is engaged and productive, possess a deep understanding of the district. So how can we as a board make sure that you know exactly what we're doing, feel comfortable about the programs and services, but also even as a board, we're providing conditions that have you gelling as a governing body. And then last, 2.4, cultivate a wellness planning approach, looking at not only promote supports employees' well-being, but both physically and mentally. We've been pushing this over the last strategic plan, but we're trying to ramp that up, making sure that not only are we supporting our staff and being as healthy they can be, because that results in 1, people coming to work, but 2, providing a better service to the district, but not only physically, but mentally, making sure that everything is as best we can support that, so that when they come to the district and they show up, they're able to provide the best service they can, whatever service they provide as part of the district programs. Public engagement, engage community members, help improve vector control. This is a very important part of the budget that was proposed, as we're adding an education specialist, really ramping up our public engagement. So not only are they going to support what we are doing as we move forward as an agency, but also supporting us in doing their part to help us out. So 3.1, looking at developing and implementing new communication and engagement methods to promote behavior change and meet identified goals for managing vectors. Influencing public awareness and understanding to support district programs, like we were talking about the sterile male mosquitoes. We want to make sure that as we move forward with that program, that the community is engaged and support that new program. Connecting with key community business leaders, legislators to maintain and improve understanding and supporting our district programs. Again, this goes to education, and these folks not only support us, but also influence the people they come in contact with. So I think we've been doing a good job at doing that already, but that, again, has to continue to be an important aspect of what we do here at the district in public engagement. Expanding our school-based programming and education. That's a very important part of our public outreach program. Again, goes to that new position that's being proposed in our next fiscal budget to continue to flesh that out and grow that within our school system, because those kids at some point in the day will be our future leaders and our community leaders. And if we brainwash them into being mindful about mosquitoes and vector control and doing their part, they'll continue to carry that into their careers, and hopefully make life for us easier in doing our job. Another big thing that's coming up in 2028 is our 100th anniversary. And so we're going to start this year, both on the staff side, but start working with the board. What do we want that year to look like? What do we want to do to celebrate 100 years of service to our community, and what we're looking to for the next 100 years? And then transparency and tracking of our plan. David is using ClearGov this year to publish our budget. It's going to be much more interactive and web-based. They have similar software that you can integrate your strategic business plan into. It helps not only make it transparent to our public at large, but also makes it easier for the board to track, but also makes it easier for staff to track and coordinate. So I'm excited about that as well. Facilities and equipment. I'm going to start abbreviating some of these because there's a lot to say. But 4.1, making sure our facilities meet our long-term needs. We've been working that. Centrica is a good example of that, making sure that we're working towards green futures. As an organization, we're here for public health. What we do in our programs, we want to be good stewards of the environment. So I think that's a good example of that. Our IT programs, strengthening the resiliency of them. Ed and his team have an IT master plan in place. How do we make sure that if something goes down, which happens in this day and age, how do we come back up as quickly as possible? So that's really the focus of the strategies and making sure, because as a district and as individuals highly dependent on technology, that goes down, it's really hard to do what we need to do. And so we're working on making sure we can come back from an IT disaster. Implementing new tools, technology. Part of the board packet tonight is expanding our drone program, getting a larger and more capable unit. Again, looking for that in the future and how we can leverage technology to do our job, hopefully easier, but also more efficiently. Expanding drone operations and new uses. We've been using that quite a bit in our Eastern Valley. It's cut down a lot on our aerial applications from helicopters, which kind of lowers our footprint down there. But how else can we use it? Looking at the agricultural areas, and at some point, how does that technology work for us in urban areas? Developing a district land and asset management plan. We have all this land here. We have the thermal property. So this objective is just really focused at working with the board and working with staff. Where do we see that thermal facility? Do we want to continue to be the landlords and stewards of that, or do we want to look for ways that we can move that on, or as a district, do we want to take that back and use that from some of our programs in the East Valley? So that's something that I want to work with everyone in the course of the next 2 to 3 years to figure out a plan to manage that land effectively. And then the fleet, we had large discussions about electrification of fleet, but again, making sure that our fleet is efficient, that it's optimized. Do we have enough trucks? Do we have too many trucks? But then also prepping for assuming the state continues to push forward with the mandates, how do we seamlessly integrate electric vehicles into our programs so that we don't have setbacks when we have to actually turn over to that technology, which for us will be 2027. We need to start purchasing electric vehicles. Applied research. Again, this district has been a cornerstone of it has been applied research for many, many years. Typically, it was focused on improving our vector control programs, but in the last several years, we've also kind of created that social science aspect of it. How do we engage our public, and how do we make sure we're doing that? Can we measure success in that? So that's really 5.1 is doing things not just to do them, and making sure that what we're doing in public engagement is making an impact and a difference. And the last goal is the finances piece. Again, long, at least since I've been here, a long commitment to ensuring strong finances and ensuring strong finances by maintaining strong financial plans and sound financial decisions. We're reviewing all this, our investment policies are being updated, looking at, we have $6 million in our emergency response plan. We're going to be looking at staff, and is that what we need? Is that too much, too little? So looking at making sure we're using the public funds to push our mission forward, but also doing it in a strategic manner. Securing financial resources for disaster recovery. We've talked about this in the past. We're currently working with our insurance providers looking at earthquake insurance. We've been self-insured for that. I don't know if that's the best strategy or not, but myself and David are looking at what that looks like, and we'll bring that back to the board. And then lastly, matching our performance goals with our budget. David's always after an award, and we're continuing to look at that commitment to transparency. This one being aligning with what the best practices are based on the Government Finance Officers Association, which David is year in, out, an award winner, and we're still trying to push that envelope to be even more transparent, more accountable to the public. Monitoring oversight, communicate and lead. as a general manager, I'm accountable to get this thing off the ground and not collecting dust. And so I'll be communicating both with the board, with staff, and working with my management team to make sure we push these objectives as best we can over the next 3 years. Evaluate, it's part of my evaluation, it's part of the team's evaluation. The management team has objectives and will have strategies that they're responsible for, and we're using that to monitor our progress and our performance. Manage resource allocation and oversight. We have clear vision, we have a clear mission, we have clear values. If we're doing programs, if we're providing a service, something new comes up, how does that support our mission, vision, and values? If we can make clear connections with that, then probably something we should be exploring. If it doesn't, maybe it doesn't align with this, at least with this plan for this time. Making sure we're moving towards environmental sustainability and programs that align with what the state is pushing for. And then in 3 years' time, or a little less, come back to the same process, continue this. So I think it's been a healthy process, especially this go around. The last one we had was virtually, which was because we were coming out of COVID. But to speak for myself, and I think for the management team, it's been a little more tangible because we've been working more closely together on it in this iteration. So I want to thank the board for taking the time to work with Andy, who I think is still somewhere there in the virtual world, but also want to thank my management team and the staff that provided their insights, their thoughts, and their feelings of where the district should be going in the next 3 years. With that, I could take questions. If not, we could approve it.
Thank you, Jeremy. Any
Yes.
questions for Jeremy? Or Andy?
And there's
If not,
Andy.
entertain a motion to adopt the strategic plan. There's a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, item number 2, discussion and or approval to enter into an agreement with EcoZone International to complete 2 applied research projects.
Good evening, board. This is a report that's on page 74 of your board packet. These were 2 projects of proposals that came in that were then reviewed by the research committee to talk through the projects. They line up with research interests that the district has put forward as part of our research proposal package. The researcher involved is a now retired individual from another mosquito control district. He had worked here at one point, but got a job at a different mosquito control district and now has been retired for 4 years and still does this kind of research. And so he has proposed the 2 projects that you see listed there. Both of those would be beneficial to the district. I'm happy to answer questions you may have about those projects or to talk through some more details that you feel are missing. And of course, Trustee Coons, Trustee Walker, and Trustee Figueroa have also had a little bit more information about this and may have some additional insights for you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Any questions for Jennifer or the committee? If not, I'll entertain a motion. I'll move approval. Is there a second? Motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We'll move on to discussion and or approval of resolution 2507.
Yeah, so this is the motion and the resolution to adopt the updated district's invasive mosquito species response plan. Internally, we sometimes call this the 80s plan. We're not showing any presentations for this unless you have questions, but you'll see that these were, there were links to videos to help explain these response plans, but this is the routine response plan update that we make every year. It's been adjusted to account for some changes that were proposed by CDPH for their plan and also updates to align with our work better. Happy to answer questions that you might have about the plan and any of those changes you saw.
Questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion. The motion is for a second. Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We'll move on to discussion and or approval of resolution 2025-08. Jennifer.
Yes, so this is the update for the CVs and for the district's mosquito-borne virus surveillance and emergencies response plan. Internally, we often call this the QLEX plan. This is the one that deals with our West Nile virus, our St. Louis encephalitis virus, our Western equine encephalomyelitis virus, when one of these days it comes back to us again. The update to this plan is needed every year. We update the weather conditions that had happened in the previous year, update the averages that we've seen in the mosquito collections, and make sure that it aligns with the CDPH plan. Happy to answer any questions that you might have about the work, but this is routine work that you've seen and a plan that you've updated every year.
Any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion. There's motions in a second. Motion in a second, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jennifer. Okay, we'll move on to discussion and or approval of resolution 2025-11. And David, you're on.
Hello, as Jeremy mentioned on the strategic plan, we're looking at all our finance policies. This one is the investment policy. And the finance committee reviewed this in March, and there was no changes to the policy. We sent it to legal counsel, and they reviewed all the government codes to make sure that they're all still in compliance. So just any questions regarding the investment policy?
Questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion. The motion is the second. Motion and a second, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Then David will move on to the discussion of resolution 2025-12.
Okay, so this one is the fund balance policy. Again, we reviewed it in the finance committee, and there's only a small modification, and that is for the restricted fund balance, and that's to reflect the section 115 trust that we have with CalPERS, and that's the only minor change. Any questions regarding the fund balance policy?
Thanks, I'll entertain a motion. This motion is the second. Motion is the second, all in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, we'll move on to discussion and or approval to purchase the lowest responsible bidder to compact pickups. And
Yes, in this agenda item, we're looking to acquire 2 vehicles for the surveillance department. 2 compact vehicles to assist them in carrying out their daily duties by carrying out traps, dry ice, and batteries. Currently, they're operating a 2005 Colorado that's starting to have some ignition issues. We've replaced it twice now. Now it's more of a reliable, more of a issue of reliability. It's actually stranded the driver out in the field twice, and so the shop mechanics have to go out there and jump the vehicle or reset the ignition to allow the driver to continue their work and then return to base. So we're looking to replace that unit, as well as acquire a new vehicle for our biologist. That way all staff in the surveillance department have an assigned vehicle.
thanks, seems reasonable. Any questions?
I thought that mandate was the meeting where a public agency had to buy one kicked in January.
So there was 2 options, the one-to-one or the milestone. We chose the milestone, and that's why in 2027, as Jeremy indicated, we'll be required to have that electric vehicle moving forward.
Want to try to do one right now, get a Tesla or something, start to see how they work with biologists.
They're not. So if we go to the market, open market for a, because the electric truck, you're only going to have a Silverado or the Lightning. Those are, 90 to 100,000. These vehicles here are larger. So in this item here, we're looking for something that's more compact, probably a hybrid, an all-wheel drive to suit their needs. We would like to entertain an electric vehicle at some time, but in 2027 is when we're mandated to at least have one vehicle as part of our fleet.
So you haven't gotten there's no quote attached to the agenda item.
Excuse me?
There's no quote. It's just the price number, right? It's because you're just gonna go through that we talked about earlier, that company where you just get the fixed rate price.
So here we're gonna go out to RFP. We're gonna scour
Okay.
the dealerships for 2 vehicles. have them mail that in at a specific date and time, open it up, lowest bidder wins.
Okay. Thank you. Mhm.
So and he just up today, and he was smirking, there were no tariffs right now. Is it true to buy now? As opposed to something that's might be for the item now?
When you say purchase now, like, so they, well, the way that we're approaching this is that we will go to those vendors and say, hey, we have an open bid for 2 vehicles. Please submit your vehicles, and then within 2 weeks. No, I would say probably about 2 weeks.
Okay. Any other questions? Mhm.
Almost there. I was gonna say it's about-
Turn on your mic.
For 2 trucks. I talked to Ron Olson over at Fiesta. Roughly, he said about 35,000 might be the top tier for an all-wheel drive work truck.
I think
Any other questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion. Motion. Second. Motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimous. Okay, we'll move on to our next item, which is a discussion and or approval to purchase two-year Cayesta disaster recovery as a service.
Yes, Kaseya Disaster Recovery as a Service. So basically, the Kaseya service here will enhance and capitalize our investments of our Unitrans backup appliance. So right now, all our servers are being backed up locally, and then it gets shipped off to the cloud. So in the event of a disaster, we'd have to download those images. With this service comes in, those images up in the cloud, we can turn them on. We can give our workers VPN clients that will connect to those servers in a secure fashion to access their server to services and their data. So by the time everything gets in order here, power comes back on, internet comes back on, we acquire new hardware. They'll ship us a new appliance with the latest backup. We take that backup and restore into that new hardware, and we continue operating. So this service sits there waiting for an incident to occur. When it occurs, it stands up. We shift everyone to that cloud. They continue working. Once that's done, like I mentioned before, a new appliance comes to us. We take the latest backup, put it on that new hardware, and we continue working. This approach is in line with the IT strategic plan for automated backups. And that's the approach. Are there any questions?
yeah, this one doesn't say if it was budgeted or not budgeted. Would this be a new line item in the budget or?
No, there's funds in the budget. It just wasn't called out in the budget.
Any other questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion. So motion. So moved. For a second. Motion and second, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carries unanimously. The next one is discussion and or approval to purchase an unmanned aircraft system drone. Richard.
Yes. So as the drone program continues to mature and expand its reach, we recognize that the need for operational flexibility. Different areas present unique limitations. Some locations may require a longer flight time, where others may require a heavier payload to have a more concentrated application. So that's why we're asking for a larger unit in general. Now, I do have a video just to kind of show operations, but that's something else. Is there anything else you have? Any questions of what the drone would capabilities? How big, like size wise or payload? It's over 8 feet.
Just the size of the stick. Why is it that cable?
It's a little bigger than that. Yes, each blade, just to give you an idea, the blade is, one blade itself is 56 inches. So where we're at now, we're at 30. So we're about for each blade, and this one's gonna be about 56 inches per blade. And there's only gonna be 4. This is a quad. We have a hexacopter and we have octocopter. Now we're gonna go back to a quadcopter. So we have a 100-pound capacity payload, and that depends on the product that we're actually using.
Question regarding training payload. Can you kind of describe that? What's we're in here? Training payload?
Oh, training, that was kind of written in that for the cost, we're gonna receive training on the new equipment
Right.
and with the payload and just how to disperse that product with the new units.
Oh,
So it
okay.
has to do with the training coming in with the new.
Training,
products.
I thought, wow, you have to get special material to,
No, it was just that way it was
okay.
written in.
Oh, thank you.
Question.
Right now, we have 2, myself being one. For application, we have 3. This would be a 4th, yes.
First of all, do we have a drone department yet? Okay, we have an IT department, but we don't got it, so this is what we're gonna get, this is what I want. This is when we're gonna use this, is there a person who takes the lead each day and says, okay, this is a crazy investment we're doing with all these drones and hundreds of thousands of dollars. Here's how we're gonna maximize the use of all these drones to operate. How is it scheduled each day?
Right now, I do the scheduling to know where we're going. Now, for the equipment, that's what I'm doing the research and trying to see what is the best equipment to be used. I can tell you when we first started buying these drones, there was actually a question that came, why aren't we buying the biggest drone available from the vendor that we purchased from previously? And that was because of how it was actually folding up and it didn't fit into certain areas. And it was really awkward for the size that it was. And there was things with the spreaders that didn't actually meet some of our requirements, why we didn't go that direction. So now that we know that this company that we've purchased from in the past, we know what their equipment is capable of. And now we know that they've hit a certain mark, and that's why we're venturing towards this. But I'm the one who actually looks at those specifications and the manufacturers. Right now, yes. So that's what I'm solely doing is with that drone department.
Scared me, your answer. So we're gonna spend 56,000, you got 3 or 4 other drones. Yeah, I've said this before and I'm saying it again. I think it's time for the drone department, there's a department head, there's a budget, there's a direction.
So part of the budget, proposed budget for this year is another UAS operator. So currently Rick falls underneath the operations program, but he is a UAS coordinator, and the vision for that new position so that he, as the UAS coordinator, will have more time for planning and implementation, and we'll have 2 full-time UAS operators that can actually kind of continue to flesh out the program.
No. Because if by the time you get down to the water surface, you would have to land in the water, let it sit there before you could actually come back up. Now that there's other equipment out there, but you have to understand that where we're operating is really heavily vegetated. So if we put the drone down in certain locations, there's a possibility we're not going to be able to get it back up into the air. That's the only concern there. And if we're going to open water, that's not really where we're focused on looking where the breeding is actually taking place. So that would be one of the reasons. But when we're looking at the shoreline, if we're going to dip that entire area, that's a fairly large area. We're talking, that's probably a little bit more achievable. Right now, we're more focused into the shoreline. During the season, during duck clubs, that's when that would come back into play.
Good question. Thank you. Any other questions? Not, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
There's a motion and second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimous.
And now we're going to roll the video to kind of highlight some of the programs.
Now, this is just kind of giving you a glimpse of what operations kind of look like. This is as short video as possible. We're able to deploy the drone in a timely manner so that intervention can take place as soon as possible. We can see that here's a liquid application going down, that it's following the terrain, it's navigating pretty well. This is about the best that I could get with being safe with another drone. You can see where the downdraft is pushing that liquid application. So this is an actual application taking place. And then we're going to transition into what we're also capable of, which is the dry product. And here you're going to watch this video. Product will start to disperse. And you can clearly see it's covering the areas where usually technicians would be very limited to maybe even no access in this particular area. And then we're going to go over into another application site. And this is where we can actually control precise application sites, being able to target areas where we need to focus and where we don't need to focus, and we can control those paths of the drone. And not only that, we can control the speed and up to 44 feet per second, 30 miles an hour. And it can handle that quick. So it's either at the end of the mission, you're all done, or you're just doing this over and over again. And every landing is a good landing. Any questions?
I guess we'll do.
Well, we can, as long as we can keep going that day, as we have time, we can keep going. There's no, and duty cycle is 100%. How many times? Yes, it could happen up to 24 times. It could happen up to 12 times. Yes.
So like, let's say today it's like really windy. So a day when it's like, what other conditions are you able to fly and not fly basically?
Right now, 25 miles an hour would be the max, but then we also have to look at chemical drift. So we might not be limited by the wind for flight, but we would be limited by product.
Okay.
Do you see this replacing your helicopter applications?
Wait, I'm sorry.
Do you see the drone program replacing any helicopter applications?
I don't see it replacing it 100%. We can only cover a certain amount of area. If there's virus detected, we need to cover a large area in a single night, and we can't do that yet. I'm not saying that we wouldn't be able to achieve it later on down the road, but right now, I would say that we've reduced the helicopter services, but I'm not sure about eliminating.
Yeah, it's a little bit bigger of a challenge with the ULD application for adult mosquito control, but like Rick said, not yet. But I mean, it's a very quickly evolving technology, and I think that's the long range plan, because we are limited in our. I mean, there's not many helicopter operators, literally two, that will do our type of work in Southern California, and so it is. I would say, in my vision, the long range goal is how we can replace that footprint as much as possible. And the other piece that we're working on is continue to encourage the water district to continue to push those channels to sea, which will eliminate a lot of the spaces that we're treating, and get rid of some of that water and get it into the sea. It'll reduce the acreage, which will make it much more manageable for a drone rather than the helicopter. At least for the larvicides, side, it's a low ways to go.
What you're showing in the footage when we started was one drone, and you're right. That our goal is to achieve that. But even where we're at right now, you have the trailer container that contains the drones for transportation and services in the field.
Yes.
So you have a flatbed, full-size truck pulling that. And you have another one that carries the application with trailer, right? A big tank. Is that all the liquid?
So that depends if we're doing a liquid, yes. That particular trailer right now, we're utilizing that one on site, but we're already planning to add different tanks onto those flatbeds so that we don't have to pull an additional trailer. We're using it to water the landing zone,
Okay.
as well as
To mitigate the dust.
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I guess even at this rate, compared to other vector control districts, my understanding is we're still ahead of it.
I believe so.
Yeah, at least that was the understanding. So we're kind of testing how far we're going with this, but eventually we have to see something more to go with it. So I appreciate what you're doing. Thank you.
And I know at the national conference, there's a lot of people came to that session. The watch that, so. Okay, thank you. Motion was approved. We'll move on to committee reports. I'll report in the executive committee with the 15th this month. We'll move on to finance. Frank.
Do we have the chart? Okay, I have it over here in paper, but not everyone has have the chart, so I think it's in the board packet.
Mhm.
You look at the board packet.
I think everybody should have got one of this.
Yep. No, actually, it's not. It's not in there.
Not in there?
No. You want this? Finance. It's in the finance packet.
What's over?
Uh, thumbs up. No, no, so at this point, we're at 3,859,313. The revenue shows a positive budget to an actual variance of $363,000. Expenditure shows a positive variance of $473,932, and then given an overall positive variance. For planning purposes, the district is under budget. So the green line is above the blue shaded area in the larger. You should have to get to it that way. It's fine. And really looking at that, but if you know when you look at the graph in the finance committee, we talked about why in June, July, there's a big high increase in expenditures, and that's we talked to David that it's the pre-funded and the CalPERS and other unfunded liabilities that we usually pay at that time. And so really looking at that so people can understand why that is higher at the end of the fiscal year is because you're paying for items in the end. But we also did talk about how we have increase in salaries as well this year, right, with the contracts. But the next year we'll make sure we'll reflect if we saw in the new budget that we just reviewed in the budget committee what we saw the increases in that as well. So overall, the district is under budget as of March 31st, 2025.
Thank you. Any questions for Frank? Thank you, Frank. Okay, we'll move on to trustee comments. Anybody have any comments? If not, we'll move on to Jeremy's report.
Very brief. I just want to get on all the trustees' radar that next year our MVCAC annual meeting will be in Rancho Mirage at Rancho Las Palmas. It's going to be February 1st and 4th. So hopefully everybody can be in attendance. And Rick, that you just heard of on our drone program is keep in planning for a drone field day that we will have at least at this point here at the district. And that will have not only showcasing the district's drone program, but we're having vendors come in to do things as well as also doing some training. So that'll be something to look forward to. And we'll be able to showcase our facility as well. I did want to thank the staff. Robert spearheaded it. I know Trustee Ross was able to attend our district open house. Staff did a lot of work to prepare for that. And fortunately, didn't get as many as we wanted to be here, but we did have Councilmember Wayman Furman from the city of Indio and Dr. Topper Taylor from Indian Wells came, as well as Oscar Ortiz from the city of Indio came on an alternate day because he couldn't make that day. But staff did a great job in really showcasing all of our programs and for the city council members that were here. I know they learned quite a bit, and hopefully they came back to those cities and talked about the great things the district is doing. But again, I wanted to thank staff for doing that. And we're going to be Robert, Megan, and staff will be looking for our next open house, maybe in the fall or winter, and also kind of expanding our reach. So not only could our local electeds, but also expand it to some of our special districts so they can also learn more about our district and also our elected officials or state elected officials. And want to thank Trustee Ortiz came with Cynthia Bryant, who is the chief of staff for Assembly Member Wallace's office. She had a fondness for mosquitoes, and they visited and had a good tour of facility, and definitely I think expanded Cynthia's knowledge of mosquito control. So thank you,
Trustee Ortiz for bringing her in. And then the last couple of things, I was invited to speak at Leadership CV, which we have some current members and some alumni here, part of their governance justice training day. And we were the only special district there talking about special district business. So hopefully educate them about what special districts are, but also what important work that we do. It was great to see some judges there that laughed and smiled. So that was cool for me. Because the judge that was there, which lost his name, is the one that actually signs our warrant. So it's good to see a different face of a judge other than in a stern black robe looking at you. But it was a great event. I was there most of the day by our drone, and everybody, I think people were intrigued to hear some of I missed Trustee Ross, I think was in the afternoon, but got to listen to the mayor panels, and that was, and I think a very interesting group. I think it's something that I'll encourage staff to look at if they're looking for ways to kind of expand their network and develop professional. So appreciate doing that. And the last thing, Trustee Rowlett had a field day with him over there at Desert Horizon there in Indian Wells. We caught some mosquitoes. So we took some out of the system, but also learn more about their HOA. He's on their HOA board as well as on their landscape committee. So I'm excited to work with him and maybe change some of their landscaping practice to reduce mosquito sources. So I had a good day with Trustee Vallette. Thank you for doing that. And that is it.
Thank you. Any questions for Jeremy? Thank you, Jeremy. We have council, anything? I don't have anything. Okay, thank you. We have no closed session, so that'll take us to an adjournment. We will stand adjourned at 7:06.